Welcome to Unit 1, Exploring One Variable Data. This is the very beginning of AP Statistics, and this is the very first topic, 1.1, what can we learn from data? Well, we live in a very data-driven world where so many crucial decisions are made based on data. Okay, but why? Because everything varies. This is what makes the world we live in so much fun and interesting. If I wanted to know what proportion of people love chocolate ice cream, well, if we lived in a world where everybody loved chocolate ice cream and it was a guarantee that everybody's favorite flavor is chocolate ice cream, then I wouldn't even need to ask that question because I would just know it's chocolate. But, that's what makes it fun, because we live in a world where everybody has different feelings on their ice cream. Same thing with animals, right? If I wanted, if all lions were exactly the same size, then I wouldn't need to ask any questions about lions because they're all exactly the same. But that's just not the world we live in. And that's what makes the world we live in fun and interesting. But all of this variation makes answering questions about the world we live in pretty difficult. But have no fear, data analysis is to the rescue. Data analysis can help us answer so many questions with the idea that everything still varies. So what are some types of questions? Well, we call these research questions, right? Because in a world, if we want to answer something, we need to do some research to answer it. So given that variation may be random or not, conclusions are uncertain. That's actually a really important sentence to hear the very first day here. Given that variation may be random or not, conclusions are uncertain. And that's the idea. Like when we see a bunch of data and we see all that data is different, well, we got to ask ourselves, why is all that data different? Is it different because of an important reason? Or is it different because it's just random, right? And that's kind of what happens when you start collecting data. So numbers can convey meaningful information when placed in context. All numbers must be given in context with units. What I mean by context is, don't just tell me, oh, the number there is 7, or Donna had a 16. 16 what? What are you talking about? You got to tell me what that means, right? So numbers need context. If they don't have a unit, like if it's not in inches or feet or millimeters, then it's got to be something else like, 16 times she went to the gym this month. Okay, there's the unit, times that she went to the gym this month. The whole point is that where numbers come from, who they represent, why they were collected, or where they were collected from are all very important questions that you have to consider when you look at data. Here are some questions that, aren't the most, important questions out there, right? To get things started, these are some research questions that maybe you want to know. What is the typical hair color at your high school? What is the average height of students at your high school? What is the average IQ at your high school? What is the most popular flavor of ice cream? How long do teenagers brush their teeth? What's the average length of words in To Kill a Mockingbird? Or questions can be even a little bit more difficult. They can involve maybe multiple populations or multiple ideas. How do I know a new medication works better than an old one? That's a great research question. Is there a difference between the IQ of males and females? I don't know, maybe. What grass fertilizer works best? There's all kinds of brands out there, A, B, C, or D. Which one's the best for my grass? Does a larger proportion of teens use social media than adults? Probably already know the answer to that one, but you never know. We got to answer that question. Has there been an increase in the proportion of people that are unemployed over the last 10 years? Have unemployment rates gone up, gone down? I don't know. To answer any of these questions, I got to do some research. Now, there might even be some more in-depth questions, like I read that the average ACT score is 22. Is that true in my high school? So now I'm even doing more, right? I want to answer this question. I don't want to just know what the average ACT score is. I read it's 22, and that seems good, bad, I don't know. It's up to you. But I want to know if that number is true for my high school. Another example is I read that 78% of high school students feel stress on a daily basis. Once again, that might be true for the entire nation, but is that true for my school? I guess I better do some research so I can figure this out. So how do we answer these questions? Well, we got to start somewhere. And honestly, it's quite easy. Through collecting samples taken from the populations we're interested in. If I want to know what the average ACT score is at my high school, well, I guess I better take a sample of kids at my high school. Now, those samples will provide us data that we could then begin to analyze to answer our questions. And throughout the course of this entire class, you're going to learn about how we're going to analyze that data. We're going to start very easily, and then we're going to get into some more advanced stuff towards the end of the year. But everything else considered, it all comes down to data. So what can we learn from data? Anything. And I'm being honest with that. If you have data, if you could collect good data, you can learn anything that you want. The most important takeaway from this course is that data is all around us in every field of study. I don't care what you're going into in college, you're going to use data at some point. Being able to comprehend and understand what that data is telling you is super, super important. You will have a better, maybe different view of the world you live in after you take this class, I promise you. Is it the most fun and exciting topics in the world? All depends. If you're a data-driven person, yeah, you're going to love this stuff. But otherwise, maybe it's not the most interesting stuff. But I promise you that you will have a much better idea of what we could learn from the world we live in, all based on looking at data. So let's start with what data even is. All right, see you guys in the next video. Can't wait to start the year off.